Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. All right, the BYU men's basketball program, on the heels of their win against Baylor earlier this week, have jump-started their chances of making the NCAA tournament. Now, that may sound like hyperbole, but it really isn't, my friends. After BYU beat Baylor, they jumped up on the KenPom ratings from 38 to 31. To jump 8 spots, it's a pretty impressive deal for BYU. They're now 31st in the KenPom ratings. Obviously, the Big 12 is well represented in the KenPom ratings, but traditionally, as I understand it, and Ken Pomeroy has been a really good friend of my radio stations for years. If you're inside the top 40 at the end of the year, you're traditionally going to be in the NCAA tournament in his ratings. The bigger point to be made here is after BYU beat Baylor, bracketologists like Joe Lunardi out there started to really think, okay, BYU's finally got a Q1 win, a quad 1 win. Now, 7 of their next 8 games are also Q1 games. BYU is going through a really, really tough schedule upcoming here. But if they can manage it well, and I think manage it well means you're 500 at worst, they should stay right there on the proverbial bubble when it comes to the NCAA tournament, if not pushing to get in. After BYU beat Baylor and got that Q1 win, Joe Lunardi yesterday had them in the first 4 out territory in his bracketology. UCF is one of the last 4 in currently of that latest bracketology from ESPN. So I look at this, and so long as BYU manages, like I said, their schedule here well, and it's not going to be easy because going to UCF, coming home to face off against an Arizona team who is absolutely dynamite right now, they will be ranked by the time they show up in Provo next Tuesday. And just beyond that, you look at just the schedule for BYU going forward. If they can make a run here over the next 8 games and go 500, yeah, they're absolutely going to stick right there on the bubble. But if not even push into the actual bracketology field of being an at-large team. BYU is not ranked. They're 6th currently in Big 12 play at 5-4 in conference. Remember, last year they finished in 5th place and ultimately got that pretty good seed. Now, don't remind me of the Duquesne deal in the actual NCAA tournament, but they had a really, really favorable seed as the 5th place team, as a 5th place team in the Big 12 last year. They're in 6th place right now. If they can hover right there, kind of in the middle of the pack in the Big 12, the rest of the way, it's going to require wins and losses, and that's just the nature of what the Big 12 is going to do to this basketball program. But if they can hang in there, and it sure looked like that win against Baylor, the fact that they ground out a really, really close win after they had lost a number of those earlier on the season, seemed like they learned their lessons there. You had starring performances from your 2 phenom freshmen in Jaeger Demon and Cannon Catchings. You had vets step up in big moments in Richie Saunders. You need all of this to come together, but it sure looks like the Cougars have turned the corner. And if they indeed have done that with a 3-game win streak in their back pocket, can they make it 4 in a row against UCF? And then can they spring an upset over Arizona in what should be an absolutely epic atmosphere at the Marriott Center next week? You start to string together some success here, and it's going to very clearly lay out. You keep winning, or you keep pace, I guess I should say, in the Big 12. You, like I said, you kind of hover right there with the rest of the pack. Houston, Arizona, they have pulled away from the rest of the conference. Houston is undefeated at 9-0, whereas you've got Arizona 8-1, but BYU at 5-4. They're in 6th place right now. They're tied for 6th. That's a good spot to be. You can hover right there, and just based on the metrics, and Ken Pomeroy said it on my radio station, the KSL Sports Zone, just a couple of weeks ago. If BYU could go 10-10, he thought 11-9 would get it done for BYU to make the NCAA tournament. He thought so 2 games over 500, 11-9 record would get it done. He thought 10-10 might even get BYU into the tournament. And I would take that. At this juncture, based on some of the struggles we have watched with this BYU basketball team, wouldn't you accept the fact that just making the NCAA tournament field, seed be whatever it is, just get in the tournament field and see what happens? It's a crazy, crazy thing. And obviously, there's been a ton of aspiration, a ton of expectation from Kevin Young and what he's expected to do as BYU's head coach. But I think that the nice part is this team is figuring out in real time. there were major concerns, and I harbored a lot of them. I've talked about them on this podcast. If you're an everydayer, you know I was harboring some major concerns about this team not even 2 or 3 weeks ago when they were 1-3 after their first 4 games in conference. And I'm like, wow, how are they going to find their way and claw their way back up into the mix of these things? Well, they've done that. They have, in the Big 12 era so far, they've never had a 3-game win streak. That's the incredible part about this. They made some history with that win over Baylor. Can you make it 4 in a row against UCF? And if you do that, if you still a win against UCF on the road, then I would actually consider that to be like a win and a half in some ways, because road wins come at an absolute premium in the Big 12, and getting one on the road in Orlando would be a really, really nice feather in the cap of this basketball program. But getting back to the original premise here, it's crazy what happens when you get a Q1 win, the first one that BYU has all season, and suddenly I remember seeing some consternation out there on social media, et cetera. Well, BYU's got all these great metrics. Why are they not on the bubble watch? It's because they didn't have a Q1 win. You get that Q1 win, you break the seal there, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, okay, there you go, BYU. Let's get you in the mix here. So, yeah, there's work to be done. They're currently, like I said, on the periphery, on the outside looking in as among the first 4 out. But you do your work, you handle your business, you go out there and win the games in front of you, as many as you can with this stretch of games. Like I said, 7 of the next 8 Q1s. Geez, if you're 4-4 in those, that's going to be 3, maybe 4 Q1 wins. And with 5 of those in your back pocket, yeah, Joe Lunardi's going to have a hard time keeping you out of the NCAA tournament field. So that everything is measuring up right now. The BYU is on the right path, and they have righted the ship. That's a credit to Kevin Young, as a credit to this team, because once again, they seem to be floundering early on in Big 12 play. I think they have grown up. I think they have formed a more cohesive bond than what I saw earlier this season. It felt like at points earlier on in the season, different guys were pulling different ways. I think that Kevin Young and his staff have channeled everybody and gotten them on the same page. And if that is indeed the case, this BYU team could make a nice little run here and could make some noise. And that would be the fun part about what the NCAA tournament holds. Is obviously they want redemption for the one and done nature of last year in Duquesne. They hold that ignominious mark of being the team that's appeared the most in the NCAA tournament without a Final Four appearance. I'm not saying BYU is going to make the Final Four this year. In fact, I would bet highly against them doing that. I just want to see BYU get in the tournament, because with the talent they've brought in, the expectations, what you've done on the recruiting sphere, everything revolving around BYU basketball, to fall short of making the NCAA tournament, I think would be a really poor look for year 1 under Kevin Young. But if you can get into the field, like I said, I don't care about the seed, just get into the big dance. That would be enough for me to feel like, okay, BYU's figured some things out here. They more than figured things out. They took the punches right on the chin, and they punched back and found a way out of the corner and made their way in to March Madness. And that, like I said, for me, that would be enough. And I welcome your feedback on that as well. If you think I'm up in the night thinking just making the tournaments enough, hey, maybe not. If you don't think BYU is going to make the big dance, I also welcome that feedback. But I think right now, things are looking up for BYU basketball, but there is a ton of work and a ton of tough games to come. But it'll be fun to watch how they battle in these upcoming games. Obviously, UCF coming up on Saturday afternoon.